Parenting, Patty Stevens.
Good evening, fellow toastmasters. Yes. Tonight I'd like to talk a little bit about parenting. It's a skill that you just can't really hone. I've never claimed to be the best parent in the world, but given the circumstances in today's society, if you can get a kid through high school without an arrest record, you did pretty good. So I guess I did a good job. I raised 2 girls without an arrest record. They both have high school diplomas. I also raised my niece from birth to age 7, then there was a 10-year span. I didn't have her. I got her back at 17, got her through high school diploma, no arrest record. So I gotta say, I have to be at least adequate. Along the way, I've learned many lessons. And most valuable person in a parent's life is their mother. You don't realize how valuable this person is until you have your own children. Suddenly, all of her words of wisdom come into play. A mother helps you, gives you great advice, and then reminds you of your own childhood. The first lesson I learned as a parent was the mother's curse. Didn't take me long, within a few weeks even. And as it progressed, I realized how severe that curse was. When a mother says to you, "I hope you have children just like you," it can happen. My daughter, Christine, is just like me. She likes to argue. She's thick-headed. She's opinionated. I could have run her off on a copier. She's exactly like me. But anyone who truly knows me as a person knows that I'm huge on education. I've always impressed on my children, go to school, be educated. There's nothing more important in the world than education. In fact, I started them out very young with 2 lessons, English and government. And I was very stern on those 2 lessons. No is a statement, it's not a question. English lesson number 1. Government lesson. This is a dictatorship, not a democracy. You're not entitled to an opinion around here until you're at least 18. Screwed that one up. I should have said out of my house, because at 18 they were still there with their opinions now. Overall, my children were good, normal children, but there were times when they said and did the most interesting things. I remembered when my daughter Christine was about 18 months old and we flew to Virginia to visit her dad on an aircraft carrier. He was in the Navy. They took us through and showed us the carrier and then escorted us to like a little game room reception area where we could all wait for the family to show up. And we're waiting, and at 18 months old, they're very excited. She wanted to see Daddy. And she's, everybody would come in the room, she'd jump and look. There's the door open. And there wasn't Daddy. And then she'd wait. The door opened again, and she'd jump and look. And there wasn't Daddy. And she'd get disappointed several times. And she finally got bored with it all and started reading some books there, and I'm trying to entertain her. Door didn't open for a few minutes. And that distracted her, kept her busy with the books. And finally, the door opens, and she turns around and she goes, "Daddy!" And this enormous black man jumped back. "No, ma'am, not me, not mine." Everyone in the room was roaring with laughter as this child's down there going, So I tried to teach this child who was just like me to maybe a tiny bit control your emotions, but that, because you can frighten people with stuff like that. As the girls grew older, my mother decided to remind me of incidents in my childhood that were similar. Now, this same child who does everything exactly like me was very inquisitive and did things like a lot of normal kids do. They put things where they don't belong. Well, one day she puts tinfoil up her nose. As I'm sitting there trying to get this squirming child and tweezers to get the tinfoil out, my mother reminded me I did the same thing with hamburger. When my kids fought over looking at each other when we lived in a very small apartment, we wanted a line down the kitchen table so they couldn't look at each other. My mother reminded me I did the same thing with my bedroom, and then dared my sister to try and get out. Somehow those trips down memory lane weren't so fun then. When my children got a little older and complained about walking to school in high school because it was cold and windy, my mother reminded me of a trip to the mountains in Tucson. They had snow in the mountains, and I got snow in my boots and screamed, "I love the snow, I just want it to be warm." My girls in high school got the joy of one day of fighting, and my youngest, Lorraine, got cut. And I screamed, "What are you guys doing?" and just erupted. "You're acting silly, you know, you're cutting each other," and I had to take the child to emergency to get stitches. My mother reminded me of when I was in the back of a baseball field at 12 years old, and I got hit in the face with a softball. And that, as a parent, you should try and maybe control that, because you get a little excessive when kids get hurt. And she I reminded her of my dad screaming at me because I had blood all coming down my shirt because I got hit in the face with a softball. And she said, yeah, parents should probably try and control themselves when kids get hurt. That happens. And as I sat there as a 12-year-old, remembering my mother giggling at me at Kaiser Hospital on a busy night with that nose that was huge, and they didn't have ice packs to put on my face, they only had a rubber glove. You sitting there with a rubber glove on your face. So you kind of have the checks and balances as a parent, to keep you in check. But now that my mother is gone, and I miss those moments with her and reminding me of my childhood, I've learned another important lesson in life. Parents are much difficult to raise. Does anyone have advice? My dad's terrible.